Do you ever catch yourself pulling away from people and thinking, no one is going to get what I have been through? Yeah, you are not alone. A lot of people who have dealt with narcissistic abuse feel the same way, and trust me, there is a reason for that. Narcissistic abuse can really mess with your mind and heart. It is a type of emotional manipulation that leaves you doubting yourself, feeling unworthy, and completely drained. Those who go through it find themselves isolating from the world, not because they want to, but because they feel like they have no other choice. This video will dive into why that happens and how you can start healing from it. First up, you fear being misunderstood again. One of the worst things about dealing with a narcissist is the constant feeling that no one really gets you. Narcissists are like reality-bending magicians who twist everything you say and do until you start doubting yourself. Because of this, you get conditioned to believe that nobody will understand what you have been through, no matter how hard you try to explain. After spending so much time pouring your heart out to someone who never really listened, the idea of explaining yourself to anyone else feels exhausting. Why bother? They won't get it either, you tell yourself. So instead of risking yet another round of, no, that is not what I meant, you keep everything to yourself, wrap it up in a nice little box labeled "Do Not Open," and slip into isolation. And honestly, sometimes it feels safer that way. Next, distrust in your own judgment. Narcissists are experts at making you doubt your own reality, like, did that fight really happen the way I remember, or am I just overreacting? Welcome to the world of gaslighting, where your own thoughts and memories get turned upside down until you don't trust anything, including yourself. After being told enough times that you are too sensitive or imagining things, you start to wonder if you really are the problem. But in reality, you're not. Eventually, your ability to make decisions feels as reliable as a broken compass. Who can you trust? Are you even capable of trusting anyone? It all gets so confusing that the easiest option seems to be isolating yourself. Because if you are alone, there is no one to gaslight you, right? Just you and your mental fog trying to figure out what is real and what is not. Alright, another reason is the fear of being judged for your choices. Honestly, there's a certain amount of shame that comes with realizing you stayed in a toxic relationship longer than you should have. You start thinking, why didn't I see the red flags? How could I let this happen? And then, there is the fear that others will think the same. Sure, you know deep down that the abuse wasn't your fault, but explaining that to people who haven't been through it, exhausting. You worry they will judge you, saying things like, why didn't you just leave? Or worse, they will look at you like you are broken. It is like, thanks Karen, I really needed that judgmental stare. So rather than risking more shame or feeling like you have to defend yourself, you choose to keep quiet. Better to deal with your feelings alone than risk having to justify your choices to people who don't understand the mind games you have been through. Next up is difficulty in forming new relationships. Dealing with narcissistic abuse and constantly trying to form new relationships feels like wandering through a minefield. The emotional scars from the past make it hard to trust anyone. You start questioning every single interaction. Is this person going to be just as manipulative? Are they hiding their true self and waiting to pounce when you are vulnerable? It is not like you don't want to connect with others, but every, hey, how is it going, comes with a side of anxiety. You put up walls taller than a medieval fortress because, honestly, who wants to risk getting hurt again? The idea of someone worming their way into your life and flipping it upside down? No, thank you. So, you prefer not to take that risk and stick to your safe bubble where no one can hurt you, or connect with you, for that matter. But hey, at least your heart is intact, right? Alright, the fifth one is self-doubt. If narcissists were handing out awards, they would win gold for making you doubt every single thing about yourself. After being criticized, belittled, and manipulated, you start to question your worth, your abilities, and even your right to be happy. You feel like your internal GPS is broken, always guiding you toward, I am not good enough. That self-doubt doesn't magically disappear once the narcissist is gone, though. It seeps into every part of your life. You second-guess yourself at work, in friendships, even with family. The constant feeling of, I am just not worthy can be so overwhelming that you end up pulling away from people. Why? Because you think you are doing them a favor by disappearing. After all, in your mind, you are only going to bring them down. Actually, you are not, but self-doubt is a stubborn little elf, isn't it? Next, loss of personal boundaries. When you are dealing with a narcissist, your personal boundaries are about as respected as a no trespassing sign at a free-for-all barbecue. They trample over your needs, emotions, and limits until you barely recognize where your boundaries are or if you even have any left. Once the dust settles, you are left feeling like you have got no clue how to protect yourself anymore. The idea of setting boundaries in future relationships? Yeah, right. What if you fail at it again? What if they walk all over you just like before? Social situations become a source of stress because you don't want to go through that violation of your boundaries again. So you avoid people altogether because, frankly, it is hard to get hurt when you are chilling by yourself, binge watching Netflix, and dodging social interaction like a pro. Seventh up is feeling unworthy of social connections. One of the most brutal aftershocks of narcissistic abuse is that you are left feeling like you don't deserve love, friendship, or even basic human decency. Narcissists are pros at chipping away at your self-esteem, constantly pointing out every tiny flaw like they are reviewing you on Yelp. Eventually, you start believing them. You think, looks like I am the problem. So what happens? You pull back from the world. You convince yourself you are not good enough for friends or even casual conversations. Even when someone tries to be nice, offers support, or friendship, your first reaction is to push them away. No, you don't want to be friends with me. I am damaged goods. You become your own worst enemy. You start shutting down connections before they even start. Moving on to the next one, emotional numbness or apathy is a coping mechanism. After being put through the emotional ringer by a narcissist, you develop a superpower, emotional numbness. It is a protective shield you build to keep the pain out. But the problem is, once you flip that emotional off switch, it is hard to turn it back on. Suddenly, everything feels meh. Excitement, nope. Joy, what is that? You transform into a robot going through the motions of life. This emotional shutdown keeps you from forming deep connections because, well, how can you bond with others when you are too numb to even care? It is not that you don't want to connect. It is just that you have become so good at shutting down. It is hard to feel anything. Isolation becomes your default setting because engaging with others feels like more trouble than it is worth. Who needs small talk when you are comfortably numb, right? Next, fear of gossip and rumors spread by the abuser. Narcissists love a good smear campaign. When they are done with you, they don't just walk away. They make sure to ruin your reputation on the way out. They will tell anyone who will listen about how you were the problem. And just like that, you are the villain in everyone else's eyes, thanks to all the half-truths and full-on lies they have spread. The fear that everyone has already heard the narcissist's version of events makes it hard to reach out for help. You start thinking, what is the point? Everyone is probably on their side anyway. So, rather than risk more rejection or humiliation, you retreat into isolation. In your bubble, at least you don't have to worry about people whispering behind your back. You can control who hears your story, or if anyone hears it at all. Another one is that loneliness feels safer than betrayal. After being burned by someone you trusted, loneliness starts to feel like the safer option. Sure, it is lonely, but at least no one is there to stab you in the back, right? For people who have been through narcissistic abuse, the idea of opening up to someone new feels like handing them a loaded gun and hoping they don't shoot. So you build your own little bubble. It is not fun, but at least it is safe. The pain of loneliness becomes easier to handle than the thought of another betrayal. Yeah, it sucks sometimes, but at least you know where you stand. No one can hurt you if you don't let them in, right? It is like you have traded the messy roller coaster of relationships for a quiet, if somewhat sad, merry-go-round where you are the only rider. Next, avoiding questions about your past. Suppose you are at a party and someone innocently asks, "So what happened with your last relationship?" Cue the awkward silence. Because, really, who wants to talk about a story about narcissistic abuse in the middle of small talk? Oh, you know, just a bit of emotional manipulation, gaslighting, and the occasional mind game. How is the cheese dip? Yeah, not exactly party conversation. Even if people mean well, their questions, "Why didn't you leave? Didn't you see the signs? Are you over it?" feel like a punch to the gut. Having to relive the trauma every time someone gets curious is exhausting and downright painful. So, you avoid the questions by avoiding people altogether. Silence becomes your best defense, because the last thing you want is to have to explain why you didn't run the first time things went south. And the final one is hesitation to seek help because you are afraid no one will believe you. Narcissists are masters in convincing the world they are the good guys. They can be so charming and likable that when you finally muster up the courage to tell someone what is really going on, you get hit with, "Really? Them? Are you sure you are not exaggerating?" Then comes the frustration. After hearing that a few times, you start to wonder if it is even worth asking for help. The fear of being dismissed, or worse, blamed, makes you hesitate. You have already lived through the nightmare of being manipulated. Why risk the added pain of not being believed? To avoid this all, you choose isolation. It feels safer to stay quiet than to face more disbelief. After all, it is hard enough to deal with the trauma without having to convince others it was real. Narcissistic abuse leaves some serious scars, and it affects every part of your life. The reasons for isolating after going through that kind of mess are complicated. The truth is, reaching out for support, even when it is terrifying, is a big step toward getting better. Isolation doesn't have to be forever. There are people who understand, and you don't have to face this alone. If you found value in this video, don't forget to leave a like. If you're interested in more videos like this one, hit the subscribe and notification bell to always be the first to know when a new video is up. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.